Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with the 3-time world champion Zerg. In the red, the finisher, it's Serral. Facing off against one of the best Protoss players out of Korea. In the blue, we have Xiao in a best-of-5 Protoss versus Zerg showdown. And whether you're rooting for the best of us, one of the best of the rest of us, it'd be incredible before we get started. You can smash that like button. Help me count the algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? 1,706 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. I'll probably do it anyways because I don't know what else I do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better, as Serral was able to get his natchery despite the efforts of the early probe, though it will get away with several capital crimes: thievery, trespassing, and if YouTube comments and about 2/3 of players are to be believed, existing as Protoss. But the Zerglings, not quite quick enough. The probe flaunting the minerals on the way out. A Stargate is in production back at home for Zoun. Queens and Zergling speed for Serral. All the early fixings. The probe comes back around for another pass. Serral going for his third base. The probe... No. Oh, don't do... Sometimes we ask ourselves whether or not we could, rather than whether or not we should. But the emotional, not so much economic speed bump, the pylon, maybe buys a little bit of space for the Adept. Not really, but the probe will get home safe. And that's a Phoenix. Risen from the ashes of an old meta with the addition of energy recharge. The ability to slap 100 energy from the Nexus once a minute into a unit or a shield battery. Originally, I thought the Phoenix would be a great target, but Oracles just kind of defend, gestures wildly at all of Zerg in the early game. So, the first... Yeah, it's a Phoenix! Unfortunately, one of the few builds that is an existential threat to overlords early on. Protoss versus Zerg is usually so figured out at this point that most players don't value denying scouting as much, especially against someone like Serral, who will probably find the information anyways. But Zoun, I don't blame him. Try something a little bit different. It's an old build, but it still checks out. But behind it, he's got an Oracle. He's building Moracles. We'll see if he goes for the legendary Foracles. I'm not being rhetorical. This build, from the age of an Oracle, it's a bit deplorable. But the Oracles with the early Phoenix, you pick up a Queen, you slide the Oracles underneath, you let the Queen watch as the drones are incinerated. But I have a feeling that Serral is not going to be prey to this sort of build very easily. Serral with more hotkeys for his queens than most players use for their entire army. Yes, 2 separate queen hotkeys for the queen defense teams. Brenda, you're flying again! No, not like this! Well, picks up the queen, puts it down, oracles light up, and a single drone was taken out. Much ado about almost nothing. The idea was good, the execution of that one drone was good, I guess. But overall, did he do much to slow down Serral's progression? Did he do much to slow down Serral's production? And behind it, I thought Zoun would do some sort of, maybe a Glaives or Twilight timing. No, this is the most standard playbook. We got Blink, we got +1. The only thing we're missing now is just slapping down a Templar Archives and rushing towards Storm. And if you watch Serral versus Classic in the World Final, lo and behold, but Serral's getting Overlord speed and a quick lair. Is this a German taxi build? Named after the German Zerg player Lambo, who first realized that even though the queens cannot fly, if you give them a chauffeur and send them across the map, you may exploit the weak point of the Protoss build, which is that they have almost no units or defenses besides the Oracles themselves. And they lean on those fancy, pretentious disco balls more than anything else. And he got Overlord speed for a single Overlord drop. I'm gonna be picking up the queens and headed across the map. It's a German taxi build, early queen. Brenda, you're flying again. They said I'd have a seat to myself, Susan. Well, they lied. I don't... Overlord, protected by the queens, the Zerglings building up heavily in numbers. And Zoun has 2 Stalkers, 4 Adepts, 4 Templar. Storm is 30 seconds out, but it might as well be an hour. As he's knocking on the door right now, the Roaches and Ravagers tearing it down, lights up the Oracles, but the Queens are here, actually dodges the Oracle with the with the Overlord. The wall itself and the Cyber Core are going to be torn down. I fear that by the time Storm is completed, just a few seconds from now, the damage will have already been done. The Queen zoning out the Oracles and Phoenixes, and honestly, this may have done enough damage even without the Queens here. But since they've arrived, it makes it that much easier to break through. The Queens, Xiao gonna put out the obligatory storms, but the transfuses holding the Ravagers together, and just like that, 2 Gs, Serral wins game 1, making it look more one-sided than a Mobius strip. Wow. He's just dead. He just killed him. No mercy. Brings the Queens across the map. Zhao unable to do anything to slow him down. And Serral, it's not a huge all-in. He could have come back. He kills a dozen probes, comes back, no problem. Bigger problem for Zhao, though. As we go to game number 2. Let's see. Okay. Looks like we have enough time to mention this is from the Maestros of the game tournament put on by Comeback TV, the French organization. And the Final Four is going to be September 27th of 2025. If you're watching in a couple years and I have 10 million subscribers and you're wondering what it looked like a few years ago. It's held live in person in Paris, France. So if you're able to watch live, I'm jealous. But it will be streamed and it will end up on some of your favorite YouTube channels. I have it on good authority, and also here. So like and subscribe, and make sure to check out Comeback TV. They raised so much money from their community. They had so much support for this tournament that they decided to do, well, that was like one of the stretch goals, but do an offline tournament, which is, you know, kind of a whole deal. Technical term. So shout out to them. The French community has always been very passionate. I feel like it doesn't have to be specific to StarCraft 2, but, you know, generally. So thank you. I appreciate it. This time around, the probe was fast enough to delay Serral's Natchery. He'll just take the 3rd. I would say for anyone else, begrudgingly, with the patch, which is almost a year old now, but still relatively new in the grand scheme of things, since this game has been out for over 15 years. Yeah. But the hatchery now costs $275. As sort of a consolation for the fact that queens now cost $175. Queenflation is kind of rough at the moment. We're worth it! Everyone knows. But with those early timings, managing to get a hatchery is slightly easier, and that's why Serral in the last game may have been able to pop that hatch early on. But if you delay too many drones, is it worth it? Does the math check out? Now, another part of it, the reason why Protoss like to block the hatchery is not just because they're mean and annoying, but also because Adepts and Oracles can exploit the difference. There's no creep. The drones are sometimes transferring. Generally, it's just a lot harder to maneuver between the bases. So, even though you cut a little bit into your own economy, the potential damage to the Zerg economy later on is significantly higher. Hopefully. Ideally. Adept throwing some shade. Gonna rub its ethereal nose on everything in the main base. Not much to chase it down until Zergling speed is complete. About 10 seconds out. The queens just brooding, if you would. It's most of their job. This Overlord on the Pervert Pillar holding on. The Adept. Zergling speed is done. The Adept on the run, but the Zerglings are way faster. And he grabs the first one. Wait a second, there's another Adept. The Shade away, but the Zerglings get him by the ankles. And rips apart 2 Adepts for 2 Zerglings. You don't have to be a mathematician to know that's a good trade right there. Wow, Zoun can't get anything. The first Oracle comes in, the first Oracle goes out. You can't explain that. One more knitting needle from the Queen in the main, and it would have been taken down, but wow. And the Zerglings, the Stalker is so impotent against the Zerglings that the Oracle has to come and solve the problem for him. Wow, and the third base is delayed. Twilight Council's on the way behind. Energy recharge there. Might even thinking about sniping off the probe. The Zerglings coming in, and the Overlord even warps in another Stalker so he doesn't get outflanked by an Overlord. Serral using literally every Zergling to its greatest effect. So, is Xiao doing an all-out blink timing? Or did he just forget the Forge? Let's be generous and say that he wants to focus on getting more Blink Stalkers, but... Meanwhile, 4th base, Stasis Ward to at least delay it. But Serral already has a layer halfway done. He's got half a dozen drones completed. Well, more than that, I'm saying at a time. That should have been clear. All right, don't be pedantic. And Zhao has nothing to put on pressure. He has the Oracles, but the Queens are more than ready to deal with it. He might get 1 or 2 drones transferring. Revelation. He'll see the relatively quick, but not rushed out lair. 3 more gas geysers on the way, and a Mutalisk Den. A Spire in production this early on. Which, I think this is Serral both saying, I'm so ahead, and I'm going to try to compound it. And also, I don't want to take this to the late game. Zoun will survive. Alright. There's no Roachling attack. The fact that he just got Queen all in is going to put him in an even more defensive posture. He's just sitting at home. The Oracles are sharking around. Here's the thing. He's even making an Overlord. Wait a second. This is just a casual Overlord drop. This is just a few, like, Scarlet style, a few Zerglings in the main. Possibly to undercut the Blink Stalkers. But the part about the Spire, the most difficult, is if the Spire gets scouted for Zoun, it'll be trouble. But if it goes unscouted, it'll be at least double. Because he will have to respect it either way. Queens, Lings to deal with it, but Lings are now in the main base. Zoun was trying to pressure the 4th, but he's going to be forced back home. The Zerglings will slip right by. Meanwhile, a couple of the Stalkers actually going to get caught Blinks back. Stasis, but now Roaches are out. Zerglings on the probes. And somehow, despite the fact that Serral shouldn't have anything to pressure Zoun at all, a casual Dropper Lord. Ooh. I know. I know you're a nice guy, okay? I don't care how many Zerglings you can fit inside you. Don't be weird. But, so, instead of potentially canceling or destroying the 4th hatchery, Zoun loses several Stalkers, some probes. He can't warp in to reinforce the push. This is like the least investment Serral could have ever made. And it still pays off with intense dividends, which I guess that's just, you know, basic math again. Keeps coming up. Or going down, I'm not sure. Both are potentially accurate. And now the Mutas. He's clearly either caught a glimpse or suspects it. Oh, they flew over the Stasis Ward, I think. So Zoun has a few moments of warning, but Serral is all over him. Lurker Den is on the way back home. He's building 8 more drones, going past 80, while the Mutas flock into the main, popping probes left and right. No cannon at the natural. Blink Stalkers just have to struggle their way down, and even more coming out. And if he commits too many stalkers to chasing down the mutas, then the roaches and lings will surround the rest. Serral, damned if you do and damned if you don't when you're playing against him. Xiao hasn't even done anything wrong, but he certainly hasn't done enough right. Serral's just ahead. He's got 85 drones. This was no commitment at all. That was it. Those were the mutas. They did what they needed to do. They kept Xiao back at home until Serral could easily get a hive and a lurker den, which is the next level of tech. And speaking of, a fleet beacon is in production for Xiao. Going to try to take it to the skies and turtle to the Armada. Storm is obviously completed. The fourth base with the stasis out in front will be tougher to crack. The roaches, hydras, and lings. And the muta's coming back in. Xiao at 68 probes, though. Not a terrible economy, though he needs another base to really make use of it. This is an expendable Zerg army. Not that Serral wants to throw it away for free. Just making sure he stays at home, and somewhat ironically, now Serral has scouting because of the stasis. Keeping tabs on things. The mutas and a Tempest will be the first choice. +2 ground weapons nearly complete. Xiao moving out. His best opportunity to do so. There's already lurkers on the field. Lurker range isn't quite done, so he still has some opportunity to deal with this. And as the Tempest count grows, there's very minimal anti-air. Though thankfully for Serral, he already has a Spire done. No Corruptors. In fact, Serral suffering from success. He's at 200 supply, but I'm sure he's going to work on that momentarily. The Hydra's actually hitting the Tempest. The Storm hitting more Zealots than Zerglings. The Roaches, a minimalist split. And the Lurkers that spread. I can't believe it's not butter. Well, crunchy, but... The Mutas! He actually comes in. He brings the mutas in to try to snipe off the Tempest. He gets a little bit distracted, but is he going to get the Tempest? Oh, come on. The throwaway mutas, which if they had died 5 minutes ago or 3 minutes ago, Serral would not have worried a single nanosecond about them. They come in and they snipe off the first Tempest that was already softened up by the Hydralisk. The devil is in the details. And the details are in the production tab. And what else is in the production tab? Almost everything. Adrenal glands, a second Spire, more lurkers, lurker burrow speed, +1 melee attack. The Storm's trying to zone out the lurkers from the left flank. Zerglings coming back around. The Protoss army, there's no Immortals, only a couple Tempests. A full surround from Serral. Eviscerating the front line with the lurkers. The Tempests are chewing through the Hydralisk. And now with no more anti-air, they can give a deep tissue massage to pretty much every Zerg unit. And maybe in like 2 weeks, they'll finish them off. The Oracles actually managed to survive through most of this. Lurkers slicing through another clutch of gateway units. And oh no, the Observer a little bit late, the Revelation as well. But just slicing through those lurkers. And Serral is diving down the center, even while these lurkers are being cleaned up. Let no opportunity go uncaptured. The Oracle's almost taken out in the midst of everything. The probe count had finally struggled back up into the 70s and will be knocked down again. Meanwhile, Serral with 96 drones. 5-6 bases. A booming economy. While the Zerglings, the Lurker, he's just chewing through everything. The Adrenalings are completed. The Corruptors are on the way. A mothership is nearly completed for Xiao. But again, he reaches for the tech, and by the time he grasps it, he loses the rest of everything. He survives, but the chasm between not losing and victory is almost as wide as your mother. And speaking of, the mothership glides out onto the field. But Corruptors are already in production. The finisher with the finishing move. Xiao's economy has been battered. His unit composition is mediocre. His supply is as high as it'll ever get, and not nearly high enough. The Time Warp will be but a short delay. The Archons are nothing, the Tempests are less, and Serral is more. 2-0. Well, could be going home early today. A masterclass yet again. Grabbing the first 2 Adepts. Get that the Zergling drop. Again with the Dropper Lord. He didn't go for the huge Queen all-in. Just a single Dropper Lord filled with 8 Zerglings. And it still managed to be the pivotal moment in the game. That is the moment that Zoun could have used his incredibly cost-effective Blinkstalker Oracle to kind of carve away at Serral's economy. That 4th hatchery is incredibly important because without it, you don't have the production. Even if you have the money, you don't necessarily have the level of production to match Blinkstalkers and Storm. So getting that 4th hatchery in a timely fashion it's not the most important thing, but it's definitely a important thing. An important thing? I was going to say something dumber. I could have just said nothing. And, you know, that probably would have ended up better, but here we are. Like and subscribe for words. Moving on. Not even attempting to block the hatch this time. Down with a gateway scale probe. And I think we have to read into almost every little bit of the early game. Because Serral gets so many streets ahead so early that the things that can end games on the ladder are ones that Serral just turns into a winning position. How many times? I mean, from personal experience, and even from watching Serral's stream when he's a little distracted by Twitch chat being Twitch chat. Instead of the Adepts dying to 6 Zerglings, getting 3 kills. Instead of the Oracle getting critically damaged and whining about it back at home, getting 2-3 more kills, or a stasis. Like, these little things add up so quickly. And to be honest, most of the time it feels like the Zerg is the one getting bullied. But here, every time Zoun tried to get anything done, Serral just backhanded him back across the map. Well, I'm going to say it right now. Like and subscribe. No, we already did that. If this is Adept Glaives, I'm not going to be surprised, but I am going to be disappointed. It feels like Glaved Adepts are the surprise Uno card of every single Protoss player, essentially since Adepts existed, especially against Serral. Thing is, if it works 1 in 4 times, that's still arguably a better percentage than many other gameplay styles. But it's the exponential curve as well. Like, Serral to Zoun is like the same level in MMR on the ladder as Zoun to mid-masters, maybe. Okay, that's maybe not exactly a great comparison, but we don't have too many players that demonstrate such a level of individual skill that they can dominate literal professionals in such a fashion. And it's not over yet. Oracle's on the way. The Oracle, is he coming back for an energy recharge? Or is he going to save it for the second one? A single Zergling. Even keeps it alive. So precious. You know, if you were a Zergling, that's a tough lot in life. But of anyone's army, I've never seen anyone care more about their Zerglings than Serral. The most expendable unit in the game. And he'll individually micro them, even as the mid-game. That's the thing about Serral's micro, is he doesn't seem like a micro player because he just does it so well. The way he plans it so well that he doesn't need to do the crazy micro tricks. But we've already seen a few little things, like juggling Ravagers in and out of an Overlord, which is an interesting visual, and little splits against Storm. But preparation is, okay, it's Blink. It's Blink. Way more important than reaction time. And that's why Serral, who's relatively slow, I say, is sitting at 530 APM. But compared to, like, Raynor and Clem, still 1 to 200 APM lower. He's able to get so much done. Rogue is also another example of this. Another player that, you know, is in the conversation about the greatest players ever. Rogue has, I'm going to say, only about 350 APM. At least nowadays. Which is less than almost everyone. In fact, Rogue and Gumiho are probably the two slowest players in the game right now. Almost every player, like Xiao, it'll go up over time. But 350 for Zerg is glacial. Yet, Rogue, like, microing mutas and going mass changeling and still making it work? Well. Speaking of this game, though, for maybe the first time, it's just Blink. This is that mass Blink timing that, it seemed like Xiao was... Oh, that shield battery is misplaced. Oh, God. Bit of an own goal there. Those probes. Well, it happens. Typical middle management. Like, no, put the battery right, sir. Are you sure? Proxy gate is the choice. The Queens pulled off the line. Roaches and Ravagers. Well, does Serral have enough? He went up to 63 drones. And the Queens are going to have to be pulled. Even more being built during the fight. The Stalkers blinking back, staggering. The Oracle's very low on energy. And there is a stasis to protect the gates. He pulls back out of the stasis at the last moment. Going to the edge of the creep. Roach speed is not quite done yet. Xiao scraping at the edges of the Zerg army. But it doesn't get any easier as time goes on. Serral's going to have Roach speed. He's going to have +1. Continued Queen production as well. The Queens can take a pounding, alright? I've all seen the video. Roaches and Ravagers. He saw the stasis, but a little bit too late. A few of the Roaches get isolated. Both players just pumping out as many units as possible. Serral obviously able to add more, but the Blink Stalker's very cost-effective. The Queen count starting to dwindle. There's not really any Zerglings here, and the Stalker's much better suited to dealing with the mass Roaches. I think Serral trying to use his larva as efficiently as possible, but a few Zerglings trickling in might make the difference. The Oracle's coming back around as the Queens are slaughtered, and air superiority might become critical yet again. But Serral breaking through the Stalkers, +1 finished in the middle of that fight. Almost hits the Oracles on the way back. And Serral bends, but he does not break. Xiao's supply dipping. The Roaches and Ravagers able to take out Stalkers, but a saving stasis. It might be enough to actually turn it around and take out the Ravagers. The most perfect stasis he could have dreamed of. I think he might need to dream bigger there. Blocks forward over the top. The Zerglings trickling in, takes out the Ravagers, but loses the series. Serral with a clean 3-0 sweep. A decisive victory. And I would say it was close, but not nearly close enough. Which brings us to our anti-spoiler bonus series. Yes, Zerg versus Terran. Jimmy debated adding this in, but we like to fulfill a certain quota of your time per day, so hopefully we make it a little bit better. But again, thank you to Maestros of the game. Make sure to check out the Final Four, which he's not in yet, but I think he's got a very high chance of being there. On September 27th, we have Serral against Ryung. Some of you might recognize of Team Slayers back in the day. Ryung, one of our longest running pros in StarCraft 2. More like a marathon at this point, but... And I think playing since 2010, which technically even before Serral, which is not that surprising. But I do think Ryung has a fighting chance, because Ryung has been willing to try those different styles of Terran. He was, alongside Gumiho, one of the pioneers of the Hellclone style. Gumiho executing it better and to greater success, but Ryung has, partially for those reasons we talked about, kind of explored new ideas with Terran. As microing Marines like Clem is, well, when anyone else tries it, they look mortal. And we're on Gresbin as well. Command Center first. Gresbin, one of the, not that old, I want to say like 3 or 4 years, in the pool for at least a couple years. One of our most standard late game macro maps. So, if Ryung can drag it there. And starting off with the Command Center first, there's a couple different types of cheese. You know what? We're going to do the cheese all-in discussion. All right. The conflating of the two ideas, at least my definition. Cheese is something that becomes significantly more effective if it goes unscouted. Like a Nidus in the main rush, or a Proxy Rax bunker, or a Cannon rush. An all-in, on the other hand, is something that is not necessarily blunted by being scouted. It definitely is worse. Anything's worse if you know your opponent knows exactly what you're doing, but I mean, obviously. But many cheeses are all-in, but not nearly as many all-ins are cheese. I think a good example would be the 8 racks, the Octo racks timing, Terran versus Zerg. Zergs might know it's coming from the start of the game. That doesn't necessarily mean they'll stop it, as we've seen in many cases, especially going back to Clem. Like cutting SCVs at 62 or so. I say that because I have a suspicion that Ryung's either going to do something crazy like a battlecruiser rush, or hit a very strong timing. So, just throwing that one out there. This way, later on, I can either reference it and look smart, or we can just, everyone will have moved on and nobody remembers it by 10 minutes from now. So, play both sides so you always win. Like and subscribe. Third Command Center. And I'm not surprised that Serral's not trying to punish it. One, why boil it down to just 1 or 2 moments? Like whether they scout or prepare. Serral is the sandpaper Zerg. Alright. He won't kill you with one cut, but just slowly grind you down. Occasionally, he'll go for the critical strike, but as we saw with Zoun. Cloak Banshee, I'm sorry. Uncloak Banshee. Naked Banshee, most accurately. And it feels that way. Without their cloaks on, what are they wearing? Their chassis? That somehow sounds worse. I don't know. Sometimes an Uncloaked Banshee is all you need. This might just be defensive, for much the same reason Protoss by default build Oracles. The Banshee just kind of defends everything, but like a German taxi build with that early Queen drop. And wow, this is... Ryung is saying if I get all in, even with a Banshee, he's just dead. Like, no barracks, 2 engineering bays. It doesn't get any grittier, but the Overlord... It spotted 1 engineering bay, which is not as much of a tell. Ryung is going for the most macro-oriented build pretty much you could have. Like, double upgrade infantry weapons and armor before any additional production. The only admission that Serral could kill him with like 12 Zerglings, okay, not kill him, but do critical damage, are those Banshees. Making sure he has a couple Banshees to keep the Queens at home and kind of keep tabs on things. But Serral is already creeping across the map. 4th base on the way. There's 4 more racks for Ryung. There's those 12 Zerglings, but the Banshees and a couple Hellions. More than enough to turn them around. The logo goes backwards. Oh. I like that. I like the logo as well. Just an aside, little keyboard on the M. Nice. That's all I had. There was no clever bit there. Yet. +1/+1 across the board, but Ryung about a 90-second lead on his upgrades. The armory's going to be spotted. It's just going to be mass Marines with a few siege tanks. Ryung going to try to max out as quick as possible. Overseer, gun down. He stimmed all his Marines. Okay, all right. He's a bit of overkill. Like Overseer kill. Infestation pit's already on the way, though. Serral fully on defense as the Queens shut down the Hellions. I assume we're going to see a hive. Very quick. Not a full-on rush, but certainly a quick option. Hive is on the way. Ravagers, Roaches, some Zerglings underneath. Creep is already almost halfway across the map. Ryung dropping out. Not too far from home because the creep is already there. The Overlord, enough dead space to keep it alive. And, yep, the Octo-Rex. 8 barracks, 64 SCVs. No more in production. It's just going to be a bunch of Marines. No Marauders. Few siege tanks. Medevacs overhead. There is a changeling within the, foot of this siege tank. Watching very closely. Making sure he knows whenever Ryung unsieges. But Brenda! I told you to stop using Apple Maps! You know that it doesn't work with creep! There are plenty of creeps on Apple Maps. That's not what I meant! The naked Banshees will be politely yet firmly asked to leave by the Queens. But the Queens are halfway across the map, so the Banshees are not going to respect it very much. Not that they would at all, but... So Ryung has put it all together. He's got the production. Hellbats. Now Vipers on the way. The Changeling. In the pipe 5x5, right, guys? You want a piece of meat, boys? Hey, where's your shield? The Changeling does not get the combat shields along with the rest of the units. Only gets whatever it had when it started. And here comes Ryung. The Fungal gets thrown out. The Banshees will be taken down. Baneling's rolling through, but the tank's tanking for everything else. The Marines and Marauders, the Roaches and Ravagers. And Serral with a victory, but not a decisive one against the first army. There's 2-2 on the way behind. Ultraless Cavalry is in production. Serral wants to cleave his way through. But the Vipers have refilled enough. Blinding Cloud. I don't know if there's enough for a Parasitic Bomb. Blinding Cloud on the Siege Tank, though. We'll take it out with ease. And Ryung forced all the way back as the Banelings roll through. But still, the high ground is too much. Serral, dealing with the well-upgraded Marines and Marauders, may have bitten off more than he could chew with his weird Zerg teeth. Suddenly, Ryung drawing closer in supply, and army supply is almost dead even. Serral just trying to take relatively even trades until he gets his upgrades, though. Adrenal Glands is about to complete. +1 melee. +2 Carapace as well as Chitinous Plating is also in production. Ryung taking up the position on the low ground. Very tough to dislodge unless you have the crowbar of Zerg, the Viper. And so far, Serral is, well, much like many things, Serral second to none on the Viper control. He's got +2 Carapace momentarily, waiting for another round of Zerglings. Ryung doesn't have any upgrades finishing anytime soon. The Zerglings are trickling through. The Banelings all coming in from one angle, kind of getting tripped up. But Loses both of the Vipers to Marines, but the blinding clouds already went off as the Banelings roll through safely past the siege tanks. Just manually controlled to the back line and running out of targets. And Serral just encompasses and eclipses the entire army. 176 to 130 supply. Ryung is Ryunging back across the map. Most of his army supply, well, not most, but a significant portion in those medevacs right now. And that's not exactly where you want to be. A different sort of game. Less back and forth, but Ryung came up against the wall that is Serral and just wasn't able to scale it. And I'm speaking almost in the past tense, but Ryung will have one more time. He'll have 200 supply with 3/3 upgrades. That is his one shot, his opportunity to maybe recapture some semblance of momentum. But Serral cut all the corners, but he's still left with well-rounded Zerg here. As he had plenty of drones, he had not a single hatchery taken down. Not a single drone has been killed. He's gotten everything he wanted. And now, I think it might continue. 3/3 upgrades. Near completed. The Vipers in position. Ryung, this is a perfect timing for Ryung, actually. As 3/3 just completed the moment the Zerg army attacked. And the Venn diagram of freedom with the Liberators overhead is more than enough to drive him back for now. The Vipers, I don't think he expected the Liberators quite that early, but there's already a Spire halfway done. Serral sparing no expense. Whoop. Blinding Cloud, but loses another Viper to Marines. Getting a little bit too close, but a couple Ultras and Zerglings. He built a wall to the left side, and they just went around. Mr. Zergachev, tear down this wall. The Ultras just chewing through. Ravagers, meanwhile, knocking down Liberators on the front line. The already kind of marginal economy will be gutted even further. 28, 30 SCVs slaughtered. The Adrenalings with absolutely no mercy. And he burrows the Lings in a summoning circle around the orbital. They'll be summoned by Ryung clearly looking on the other side of the map and Serral smelling an opportunity. Ah, yes, smells like opportunity indeed. Meanwhile, parasitic bomb on the medevacs, not microed away. Double kill Ravager and tank. Well, with the Ravagers and the Liberators and tanks. Ryung, though, has 113 Terran army supply, and he's not afraid to throw his weight around, like some Terrans I know. The Marines and Marauders. Still, well, the Bio Ball is just rolling through. It is a real threat here. The Vipers come back around, though. Blinding Cloud makes it that much harder. Medevac's unable to heal most of it. The Ultras chewing through, and the Queens on the back line sewing it all together with the transfuses. Ryung putting up a strong fight. But the war looking a lot more difficult. He took out the hatchery down the center, but there's 2-3 more. Serral still has 80 drones. He has 5 Ultralists in production. It's far too much. It's far too quickly. The Ultras just cleave through the economy and the army itself. Not always the best choice, but when you have the economy and you know they don't, the Ultras can capitalize on that way more quickly than anything else. That is why the Ultras are the choice in that scenario, when oftentimes they end up looking like a liability. But I think Serral knows what he's about. And yet again, we find ourselves on match point, with Serral taking another decisive match. Going to Maganatha for game 2. Ryung showing some very competent Terran. But you need something extraordinary to even make Serral look human. Something like Clem or Raynor bring to the table. The only 2 players who... And it's because of the speed. Serral said it himself. It's just almost impossible to keep up with him. Serral is usually a couple steps ahead, but if Clem is 3 steps faster, that's not enough. Like, fun fact, Clem is 7-1 against Serral in their last 8 series over the last couple years. Yeah. If Classic hadn't stiff-armed Clem out of the World Cup, well, we may have seen a repeat. But Protoss versus Terran is its own thing, for sure. To say the absolute least. Reaper heading across. To annoy the drones and lings, as is customary. Maybe he'll get a leg. The queen pops out. Reaper will spot the third. Serral snuck a drone, of course. 2 command centers. Oh, Ryung. I mean, he almost carried through. If he was able to defend, that's the thing, though. If Ryung was able to defend, that means he would have had more army supply back at home, or more attention, or both. Which means his direct attack would have been less powerful. But if he committed even more to the attack, he would have lost more economy. Serral creates these no-win scenarios, and then the inevitable outcome ends up happening. You don't win. I don't know how many times in one video I'm going to say Serral's really good at this game. But I think that was the first time saying it outright. I'm starting to think he's got a good shot at this. September 27th, Final 4. Don't watch too closely. Make sure to check it out live. But, you know, second monitor until it ends up here. You guys have 2 monitors, right? Winter, I'm watching on TV without ad block. Ooh. Well, I'm sorry. But hopefully you enjoy. Roach Warren on the way. Safety Warren, though. Had a early all-in. Could end up being some sort of timing, but I don't think the game plan needs to shift dramatically here. Banshee headed across. Another naked Banshee. Double NG Bay behind. Ryung. He didn't go command center first. It was 1 Rax expand. But the trajectory is near identical. I guess maybe when you get old enough, it's not so much you don't want to change. You just don't know how. And also, to be honest, it wasn't bad. It was kind of close to looking like it was kind of close. All right, like the second degree of separation there from actually putting Serral on the ropes. A few adjustments. And also, this map has the little Reaper balcony. Enough space to fit, like, 2 drops of Marines. Or maybe even your mother. There's so much space up there. As we've seen, a Thor. If it comes to that. A beautiful production line. Great factorial mechanics here. In the main base. Not entirely just for show. Being able to maneuver around the main but also have some choke points is maybe helpful later. Let's be honest though. It's mostly to fit more stuff in your base efficiently. Against Protoss with warp-ins from Zealots, building your barracks and depots is actually kind of relevant. But here, not so much. Serral with his multiple queen keys, setting up the creep tumors across the board, metastasizing across the map. Infest. Oh, wow, that is fast. I keep saying that, but I think it's actually a little bit slower than last game. And 3 more racks on the way. It's the Octo Rack. 62 SCVs. A bunch of dudes with drugs, guns, and just spun up hatred of illegal aliens. And, well, it makes me feel right at home. I'm sure Serral is used to it by now. Feels like the creep is intentionally... What happens to the logo? I'm pretty sure the creep just, like, the logo just goes over the top. Yeah, obviously. It'd be kind of silly if having Zerg in your tournament messed up the advertising. I think it's the other way around nowadays. Hive tech on the way. 1-1 about to complete for Serral. Ryung without nearly the upgrade lead he enjoyed in the previous game. Still a few seconds ahead, but the margins are thin. Serral, 80 drones. They've exchanged strong words and a little bit of attacks, but so far, almost no rush. 8 minutes. A queen! Oh, it's just Karen. Don't worry about it. The Hatchery Owner Association meetings will be much quieter now. Susan, don't say that out loud. To think it. What? I'm not Protoss. Ugh. Disgusting. Loud and proud. Brenda. This is why we have to move so often. Sorry. Sorry. Oh, the attack coming across the map. Ryung nearly maxed out. Serral. Vipers on the field, but where are they? Gathering energy somewhere, but the attack at the front, closing in on, we're gonna call it the 4th base, though Serral has another to the north. So even if he has to retreat, trying to buy time as long as he can for energy and upgrades. Doesn't want to let Ryung get too much closer to 2-2 either, though. The Zerglings are slipping all the way around. Serral, not quite committing. The Zergling counterattack is diving straight in. Ryung closes the door. That's something. The queens are going to get chased down. A few Hellbats actually joining in front. And that siege tank spread. It runs deep. Where are the Vipers? Finally. The gluttonous Vipers consuming so much energy, but the Zerglings gutted the 3rd. 19 SCVs dead. Ryung down to 150 supply. He's all in already. And the Zerglings, most of them survived and are coming in for the flank. Moments before 2-2 finishes for Ryung. Full energy Vipers. Great counterattack. Blinding cloud on 3 out of 4 tanks. And the upgrades will complete with no one to enjoy them. Serral just clears the field. The Vipers, without the sense of self-preservation that usually Serral's Vipers have, but the Ultraless Cavern is on the way yet again. I'm not even sure it'll be needed this time around, as Ryung lost a critical mass of bio. He lost a significant portion of his SCVs. Serral lost a few more minutes of his life. I can subscribe for Existential Dread. What are these creep tumors? Somehow, Ryung missed one of the strands of creep. But both Vipers did survive. One of them a little less comfortable with it. He actually rebuilt its replacement beforehand, which is a bit rude. The Zerglings working on the frontline racks. Gonna kill a few more SC... Wow. One of those, eh? Serral. Not with a bang, but with the whimper of the last units as the Zerglings claw apart the economy. Just dismantling Ryung. Running over Zoun, ripping apart Ryung. Serral once again showing that he is leaps, bounds, and streets ahead of arguably everyone else bar a couple young Europeans. So, make sure to check out Maestros of the Game, September 27th, one way or another. And Jimmy, do we have it ready? We have a little fancy video from the tournament showing it off, or at least promoting it, that we're going to play in just a moment. After you smash that like button and subscribe. And if you got the means of motivation, check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But thank you for watching. I hope I made your day just a little bit better. Hope to see you next time. Good luck. Have fun. Thank you for watching. Stay chill.